The PlayStation 1 has some of the best RPGs ever made, but there's one game in particular I feel always gets left out when it comes to that conversation. Even their own publisher has forgotten they exist. The game, of course, that I'm talking about is Breath of Fire 4. Breath of Fire 4 is a top tier RPG that was made and published by Capcom for the PlayStation 1 and came out in the year 2000. By that time, there was already a bunch of top tier RPGs such as Final Fantasy VII, but Breath of Fire 4 in particular is one of my favorite RPGs. Part of it's because it was the first RPG I ever played. This is the game that actually got me into the genre. At the time, I had already played, or rather tried, Final Fantasy VII, and I wasn't a big fan. In particular, it's because that, well, it was different from a lot of games I played before. I was used to games such as Zelda or Brave Fencer Musashi, where they were more of an action RPG style, and I just wanted that more interactive combat. I wasn't really used to turn-based combat at the time. Fast forward, and a friend of mine let me try out Breath of Fire 4, and immediately I fell in love. There was a bunch of reasons why I fell in love with the game, and I'm going to go over some of those things right now. The first thing that I wanted to mention is the art style. The art style to me is very timeless. Typically when you think of RPGs and the art style, a lot of the games that come to mind that have that timeless art style are more from the SNES era. Thinking like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI or even Super Mario RPG. The design of those games are just very timeless when it comes to their pixel art. But when it comes to Breath of Fire 4, I think it's a step above even those games. The art style is beautiful and holds up still till today. It pretty much resembles what you actually see in the concept art or the character design. Honestly, when you really look at it, it looks exactly like a one-to-one recreation of those art, and it's really good. Just looking at the game in general has a nice, I don't know what you want to call it, I really don't want to say an anime style, but it definitely has a more, I guess, I don't know, for lack of saying, just anime-ish style. Very good. The colors and everything about it are just so good for what it goes and tries to do. I mean, honestly speaking, there's not enough words I can really say that can really explain what I feel about when it comes to this art style. This art style still holds up today and is one of those things that's just very good to really look at. I mean, you really don't need any type of HD texture packs or HD filters or upscaling or anything like that. Just playing the game in its native form looks so good. Though an HD remaster would be very good. I mean, I definitely would enjoy it, or some type of an HD pack that has all the Breath of Fire games. Breath of Fire does have 5 games that were across the SNES, PlayStation 1, and PS2 era. There is a 5th game that was on mobile, but yeah, I mean, nobody's really ever played it, so I can't say much about that, but it would be nice to have the 5 games in some type of collection pack. Let's talk about the story. The story follows our main protagonist, Ryu, who has just been found by a girl named Nina who was looking for her sister that's gone missing in the desert. Ryu has no memory or recollection of who he is and what he's doing in this desert, so he decides to team up with Nina and help her find her missing sister. From there, they go on a huge journey spanning 2 different continents in a bunch of different areas, and honestly, the story gets really good. This is something that I don't really want to go too deep into because for me personally, I feel like the story has a lot of twists and turns that really make me enjoy the story overall. When it comes to RPGs, I do really think that the story is a central focus and is very important to games like these, and honestly, the story does, yeah, it's amazing. But Ryu's not the only person we play as. We also follow along with Fao Lu, who has woken up from a deep slumber, and basically I'm just gonna leave you with that because Fao Lu's story is also very interesting, and I feel like if I say any more, it's gonna be spoiler territory. But he is a key player to the story, and honestly, just the way everything plays out with him is also awesome. The game has a lot of lore that's just all done in the main story as well as in the background, and honestly, till this day is still one of my favorite settings in a game. Just everything about the game is very memorable. But of course, the story is not the only amazing thing about this game. The battle system, honestly, is probably one of my favorite battle systems. It does something that other games have done, but it still has its own twist to it. Starting off with basically how the turn-based combat works. When you do get into a battle, of course, it is a random battle, so there are no enemies on the screen. As you walk through, you'll get into these random battles or random encounters, and you transition to your battle screen. Your battle screen does allow you to go ahead and not only use your 3 active party members, but you can also use your back party members. Typically in games, usually whoever is your active party member, that's really all you can control. You can't control anyone else outside of games like, of course, like Final Fantasy X. But in this game, you can control your back party members. This allows you to easily go ahead and swap out characters on the fly and change up your strategy whenever needed, which is very, very awesome. But not only that, your back party members also can attack, such as Urshan, who basically allows you to go ahead and he does like this little rocket punch that will support you from the back, which is also pretty cool. There's also another unique mechanic that's in this game, and that's the ability to go ahead and learn enemy moves, which basically makes all your party members a blue mage. Just by going ahead and guarding attacks, certain enemy moves can be learned by certain party members, which is pretty awesome, honestly. When I actually think about it, this is one of the most unique aspects of the game, and it's how you learn abilities. There are multiple ways to learn abilities for your characters. Yeah, you do get some by just leveling up, but there's also unique masters that you can find to learn abilities from them, and of course as well as enemy moves. This gives you 3 different ways to go ahead and build up your fighting powers, which I think is pretty awesome. Ryu, though, he does get a 4th way to learn, and that is the ability of getting help from dragons. In the game, the main focus is, of course, dragons, and you can go ahead and find different dragons which grants their power to Ryu, which allows him to use different abilities as well. Ryu also has the transform ability, which makes him very special. So when it comes to Ryu, honestly, he can be pretty overpowered, and he's definitely a very important unit in your party, but nonetheless, he's also very unique, and I will say the game basically scales difficulty when it comes to this, because just because Ryu is overpowered does not mean that this game will be easy, because it is not. And I guess I should clarify that Ryu is technically not overpowered. He just can learn a lot of abilities, which is pretty awesome. He has the most customization when it comes to all the party members, but that's because his unique ability to be able to transform. Like I mentioned earlier, you do also get to play as Fao Lu, and when he's in battle, he is also a little bit different, which is also pretty cool. He has different abilities from Ryu and gang, and honestly, he only fights by himself, so you don't really get party members when it comes to Fao Lu. He's basically just a one-man army, literally. And his moveset, like I said, is different from others, which is pretty neat, and it kind of, how can I put it, just gets you pretty hyped up. Outside of combat, pretty much everything you would expect in a normal RPG is pretty much there. There is a world map, but you don't traverse it in the ways games like Final Fantasy VII does. Rather, you kind of point to the direction you want to move to, and you will basically auto walk. But in between your destination and where you're at, you'll actually get these little question mark pop-ups that show up like little different hidden areas where you might find treasure chests and other things, such as fishing ponds and stuff like that. But sometimes you can come along a unique area that might be for a side quest or anything like that, which is pretty cool. So it does give you a sense of exploration. But of course, we can't have a good RPG without good music. RPGs usually have some of the best music ever found in games, and honestly, Breath of Fire is no exception. Breath of Fire 4 has an amazing score, and honestly one of my favorite scores. This is a soundtrack I can continue to go back to because it's so good. I'm gonna go ahead and play 3 of my favorite tracks from this game, and just listen to these songs. They are amazing. honestly, all the great tracks you probably hear right away in the beginning of the game, which is pretty cool. Because you do hear the boss song, and there's two variants of the boss song, and of course there is two different battle themes. But man, I can't tell you, all of these themes are amazing. Just the music in this whole game is really good and really unique. There's just something about this game that just brings me back to the 90s, and I don't know, it's just really good. I really enjoy the music and everything that goes along with Breath of Fire 4. And before I end this video, I do want to give a huge shout out to Dragoon DT. He's been tweeting for about 287 days at Capcom and asking them to go ahead and release a collection of Breath of Fire 1 through 5 or some type of remaster or remake of these games. And honestly, huge shout out to him because he's been very consistent at that. And honestly, when it comes to the Breath of Fire franchise, you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. This is one of the reasons why I followed him, because he has been consistent at this, and this is something that I talk about frequently. I do a podcast every Saturday, and for those of you who've watched my podcast, you have heard me talk about Breath of Fire quite some time. I've been asking my podcast team to go ahead and play the game because honestly, I think it deserves to be played by everybody. In my opinion, it holds up there with the best RPGs available even today. It is one of those games that I feel like feels very timeless. When you think of timeless RPGs, you might think of games like Chrono Trigger or Super Mario RPG. Well, I feel like Breath of Fire 4 is also very timeless. Now, when it comes to the Breath of Fire franchise in general, the only games that are readily available today to play on current platforms is Breath of Fire 1 and 2. Those games can be played on the Nintendo Switch through Nintendo Switch Online. As far as 3, 4, and 5 go, unfortunately, since those were PlayStation exclusive, they are not available anywhere else as of this time. You were able to get them on the Vita or like PSP or even the PS3 through, buying the PS1 Classic stuff. But as of right now, it's not available on PS5 or anything like that, which is a shame because Wild Arms 2 is available on PS5, but Breath of Fire is not yet available. And when it comes to this game and Capcom, really, Capcom's been good about doing collections. We had the Marvel vs. Capcom collection coming. They've done the Mega Man collections. There's like Devil May Cry collections and so forth. But they haven't done anything with Breath of Fire. Not even in any of their games. When you look at it, they don't reference Breath of Fire at all. You would think in a Marvel vs. Capcom game, you can add Ryu in there because it would be a unique character to have in a Marvel vs. Capcom game, but he hasn't been in any game. Not that I can think of, at least. If he has been, definitely call me out on that. But I don't remember seeing Ryu or any Breath of Fire character in a Marvel vs. Capcom game. This is, I think, the time to go ahead and add him into something like that because he fits. He fits perfect, and he is, in my opinion, or he should be one of those mascots that Capcom should focus on. But ideally, I would love a Breath of Fire collection available on all current platforms. Again, it's a franchise I feel like that it really needs to be played, but specifically Breath of Fire 4 to me is the highlight of the franchise. Now I will admit I haven't played 5, and what's turned me down and turned me off about 5 is that it's a kind of like roguelike, and I'm just not a fan of roguelike games. Outside of Dead Cells, I'm just not a fan of those style games, but maybe eventually I'll give it a shot and maybe it might change my mind. I'm not too sure, but Breath of Fire 4 to me seems to be the highlight. I have tried 1 and 2, and me personally, I don't feel like they age well like 4 does. Breath of Fire 3 is pretty decent as well. I mean, honestly, some people like 3 over 4, and I feel like they're probably like on par when it comes to like which one likes who likes what, but 4 to me sticks out because a lot of reasons, and I think the main thing is just the art style. The art style is very timeless. That opening anime is just amazing, and just everything about the game just fits in. Not only that, I just really enjoyed the story. The story has a very unique, I don't know, like I've been saying this a lot, it has a very unique 90s anime aesthetic to it. And yes, I get it. It came out in the year 2000, so yes, it is to that. But when it comes to story, like it's just different. Right, when you think of like Final Fantasy 7, 8, or even Final Fantasy 9, their story is kind of, I don't know, it's just not the same, if I can say. It's just very unique in nature. I just highly recommend playing Breath of Fire 4. It is a game you should definitely give a try. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you going to try out Breath of Fire 4? Does this video convince you to play Breath of Fire? Or do you just not care about the franchise? Like I said, I highly recommend playing Breath of Fire 4. It is my favorite of the Breath of Fire series, and one of those games that I feel like just still holds up, so definitely give it a shot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And also don't forget, I do a podcast every Saturday where me and the podcast crew, we go ahead and talk about basically the latest news that are available, or if there's no news like there hasn't been recently, we go ahead and just have our own little conversations on our favorite consoles or things like that. We recently hit 100 episodes. I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody who supported the channel and of course supported the podcast as well. Really appreciate that. Just everything you guys do just helps me and motivates me into just doing more. But yeah, I guess that's everything. My name is James. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.